August of right now. Wilder, Fury 2, here we go.
Ok, we'll start with this. Llegó de nuevo el anuncio y esperamos informen la hora y día de enfrentarse. Jackie Nava y la Barbie Juarez. The announcement came again and we hope they inform the time and day to face Jackie Nava versus Barbie Juarez. Leader of WBC Boxing presented a pink and diamond belt that the winner will have, commemorating the month of cancer. Jackie commented that it could be at the end of the month in October.
This isn't the first time this fight was proposed.
Two fixtures between these two very notoriable fixtures in the sport of women's boxing south of the border. Barbie Juarez, former WBC champion Barbie Juarez, and Jackie Nava. Jackie, the first woman to ever hold a WBC title of any kind. Two veterans of the sport. Some might argue that the fight itself should have happened a long time ago, and here today, it's past the sell-by date, because both these ladies, gorgeous as they are, they're pushing 40. They're not in their prime years anymore. And, maybe that's true, but it's still an even contest because they're still in a similar place in their careers. They're both coming off a W.
I still think it's a good fight.
An even fight. Not that long ago, it was speculated that Jackie Nava might take on Jamie Mercado, the reigning WBC Super Bantamweight champion. There were rumors and rumblings and talks about that fight, but Jamie ended up moving up in weight, took on Amanda Serrano instead, and Jackie, rather than facing her, she helped her prepare for that fight. Comes to Barbie Juarez, it was thought that Barbie might pursue a rematch with Julie Luna, the reigning WBC Bantamweight champion, after having lost title, suffering that shellacking she did late last year. It was thought that, maybe Barbie, she'd like to run it back. That's not the case. Barbie has instead opted to face Jackie Nava. Comparatively, the Nava fight is actually a bigger fight than the Luna fight. And don't get me wrong, I actually think Barbie could and would get a lot of attention if she chose to have a rematch with Julie Luna, but this fight, comparatively, is a bigger fight than that fight. Since having won the WBC title, Julie Luna has been flying relatively low on the radar, fighting pedestrian-level opponents, pedestrian-level competition. She's supposed to be in action this weekend, I think, against Candy Sandoval.
I keep hearing all this stuff about an opponent switch.
More than one. I think they're up to two now. Who knows who it is that Julie Luna is going to be fighting, but that's the point. Since having won the WBC title, Julie Luna...
She doesn't have any big fights lined up.
Lee Eaton of MTK Global, who helps to handle the career of Dina Thorsland. Lee Eaton said they actually offered Luna a Dina Thorsland fight, a Dina Thorsland unification match, and she turned it down. I guess, I don't know, maybe she was hoping that she could fight Barbie for a second time. Comparatively, I'd give Julie Luna better odds to beat Barbie in a rematch than I'd give her to beat Dina in a unification fight. That really is a more even fight between two young champions who are in their prime. No, it just kind of feels like Barbie's left Julie Luna holding the bag in spite of Julie Luna being the reigning champion and having won that fight. It seems like Barbie's the one who's on to bigger and better things. She's supposed to be fighting Jackie later on this year, perhaps at the end of October. And Jackie hasn't lost a fight since 2011. That's right. It's roughly 9-10 years. The only hiccup that Jackie's suffered in recent memory was a draw with Argentinia's own Tigresa Acuña. And that's nothing to be ashamed of, because Acuña is a veteran of the sport the same way that Jackie and Barbie are veterans of the sport. That's the most recent hiccup that Jackie suffered. Both Jackie and Barbie They've both
of them.
been feasting on their fair share of pedestrian-level competition. You know, Jackie, she was last in action against Karina Fernandez, the sister of Benita Fernandez, who was beaten by Barbie Juarez.
Back in 2019.
You cross compare what these two ladies have been doing, and they're in a very even place. Barbie suffered a little hiccup last year when she was battered by Yuli Hangaluna. Jackie Nava, a little further back, she suffered a hiccup against Tigresa Acuña. I have to say that Barbie's hiccup is a lot worse than Jackie's. Barbie actually suffered a loss, whereas Jackie, she drew with Argentina's Marcela Acuña. Between them, in the last 2-3 years, they've both beaten the Fernandez sisters between them, and it's about time that they see about beating each other up.
I'm leaning towards Nava.
They're both technically sound, and they're both technicians. Neither Barbie or Jackie are artillery fighters. Neither one of them is a very big puncher. They're both educated boxers, and I've always liked Barbie's jab. It's one of the better jabs anywhere at or around these weights. The way she angles off, stays off the line, manages to land it. But
Right now,
I am leaning towards Jackie Nava. I saw her against Karina Fernandez. I think that time has been a little bit kinder to Jackie.
she's always in shape.
She, unlike Barbie, you know, she didn't suffer a devastating beating late last year.
You don't see Bobby going back for seconds.
I have to say I am leaning towards Jackie if and when this fight happens.
I have got me next 4 fights lined up.
Talk to me.
Bang, 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 bang.
Talk to me.
I'm going to destroy Wilder in November. First time Frank's heard it. And then I'm going to take a fight in December because of all the inactivity. Because I don't think the Joshua fight's going to happen in December, is it, Frank?
I would think March.
So
Fe-
yeah,
February,
March. So
March.
here's what my bucket list is. I'm going to fight Wilder in October 9th. I'll fight Dylan White back in the UK for the first time in years at a stadium up the north here somewhere, Manchester or something, in December. Let's get a date in December. I'll shut that bum right up. That'll be an easy one. And then I'll fight Joshua in March time, where it's in Saudi Arabia. Let's do it. And then we can have a rematch in the summer back here at Wembley. And then I'll go out in my last 5th fight. That'll be about however long, 2 years, and I'll fight Derek Chisora. That's 5 fights, yeah? And then I'll take 2 years out of the ring, just going absolutely nuts again, Frank, and I'll come back at 37, I'll wipe the floor of whoever's next. Because it'll take 2 years to build someone
That's the
up.
man with a plan.
There you go. And that may seem ridiculous, but considering that I said I was going to be world heavyweight champion from being 7 years old, and I said every single thing I was ever going to do, and did it, you cannot write me off at all.
If you've been following Tyson Fury long enough, you'll know you can't necessarily take him at his word because what he says changes with the seasons.
He wants to fight Dillian White after Wilder.
He's talking about a ring return before the year is out, assuming he beats Wilder.
In early October.
Talking about fighting Dillian White in what I assume would be late December. Dillian White and Tyson Fury are both set to be in action in the month of October.
They're on the same schedule.
That does set the stage. That does set the precedence for a match. That and, Dillian White's been waiting for his overdue title shot for some time now.
You know he doesn't care what me and you want.
He's not concerned with what me and you think and what me and you want to see should Tyson Fury beat Deontay Wilder again early next month. We might want to see the undisputed title fight right after that, assuming Anthony Joshua makes it past Alexander Usyk later on this month, and assuming that Tyson Fury makes it past Deontay Wilder early next month. We might want to see the undisputed heavyweight title fight, but Dillian White doesn't care about that. He wants his title shot, and if I'm being honest, I don't blame him.
No, I get it.
The WBC haven't even convened on that. They haven't stated or mandated that the winner of Wilder versus Fury 3 has to face Dillian White within a certain time frame. They've left it in the air, and they've left it in the air on purpose. The last thing we heard about Dillian White is that he might be making his ring return in the United Kingdom against either Jermaine Franklin or Chris Arreola. Those are some of the front runners for the fight, and that Dillian was in the midst of taking legal action against the WBC for
Obvious reasons.
and that's the last we heard about that. There's been no new information, no new developments. Right here and now, I don't know where we are with that situation between Dillian White, the WBC, and what still is the reigning WBC heavyweight champion, Tyson Fury. Perhaps the reason that Tyson Fury is saying he wants to fight Dillian White before the year is out is to quell any unrest, any discord.
Try to smooth things over.
Perhaps try to calm that guy down. Provide some assurance that he'll get his title shot should Tyson Fury beat Deontay Wilder for the second time, the third to some people.
Yeah, maybe that's what this is.
But once again, I know better than to take Tyson Fury at his word. Tyson Fury says a lot of things. Some of them happen, and some of them don't. This hit list of his, as spicy as it might sound, it's contingent upon many factors. Anthony Joshua must emerge victorious later on this month with Usyk, and it's not a foregone conclusion that he does. I mean, maybe I'm picking him to win, and maybe you are too, but
Boxing is the theater of the unexpected.
that fight has a lot of buzz. It's getting a lot of attention. For all intents and purposes, that fight is the premier event in the sport of boxing this year. And it's not because Alexander Usyk is the kind of guy that's just going to go in there and lay down. A lot of people's interpretation of that fight is that Usyk might be the most difficult fight Anthony Joshua has in recent memory. Some people think that Usyk has what it takes to beat him. That air of intrigue, that mystery, that's why that fight is as big as it is. I reiterate, it's not a foregone conclusion that Anthony Joshua wins that fight. So when you think about Tyson Fury's hit list, quote unquote, Anthony Joshua's got to make it past Alexander Usyk.
This September.
Tyson Fury's got to make it past Deontay Wilder in October.
So that he can fight Dillian White in December.
You believe that?
Not really, but that's what he's saying.
Yeah, Dillian White may not leave him with much of a choice. At minimum, what these comments from Tyson Fury herald for me is that the promotion has officially kicked off for Wilder versus Fury 3. If you're seeing Tyson Fury running around talking about all these people, it's so that he can capture the boxing community's imagination. Get them on board for what might happen beyond Wilder versus Fury 3. But even if you aren't all that interested in that trilogy, even if that trilogy is past the sale-by date and it's gone stale, you got all this other stuff to look forward to. So maybe you'll tune into that third fight. I mean, that's the angle I think he's approaching this from. You're talking about Anthony Joshua again. You're talking about Dillian White. What you're really doing here is name-dropping those guys to help you sell this fight. This fight with Deontay Wilder.
Yeah, I think it's promotion.
Tyson Fury's promises and proclamations provide no real assurance, no actual assurance that any of this will come to pass, because he's the same guy that assured us that the Joshua fight was a done deal and it was going to go through. The next day, the arbitrator rules, and here we are.
He's using these guys' names to sell this Wilder fight.
That's what this is. And finally, per tweet from Mike Coppinger, it's official. Teofimo Lopez versus George Kambosos is now officially set for Monday, October 4th at New York's Hulu Theater, Madison Square Garden. Both fighters have signed the contracts. Triller COO Thorsten Mayer tells ESPN, Triller was smart to avoid the possibility of Yankees versus Red Sox playoff game on October 5th in New York. Quite right. That will dominate most any and every sports fan's attention in the tri-state area, more than a fight between Teofimo Lopez and a not-so-well-known fighter from Australia. Keith Idek tweeted, for those tracking at home, this is the 5th day for Lopez versus Kambosos. Triller also considered Thursday, October 7th, before settling on Monday, October 4th.
All this trouble for this fight.
Very ordinary, run-of-the-mill, mandated IBF title defense that should have been done by now. Still, this is one of the more serious boxing matches Triller will have put on in recent memory. Nothing like the circus fight, the freak show we're about to see this weekend, where Donald Trump, of all people, is going to be commentating. Vander Holyfield and Victor Belfort. No. This is a serious boxing match between two very serious boxers, not two retirees from different sports, looking to make a little bit of cash.
It's serious business here.
Both Teofimo Lopez and George Cambosos Jr. are unbeaten fighters ahead of this fight. They've been out of action roughly the same amount of time. The only drawback for Teofimo is that he is said to have contracted COVID-19 some time ago. Some people interpreted that as a very clever ruse, a very clever lie they told in order to move the fight date, in order to allow them more time to promote it. Other people took it at face value that Teofimo's negligence led to him contracting the virus, and that has led to a delay. And that has led us here to this October 4th fight date. So the way it breaks down, Lopez versus Kambosos Jr. is set to be going down the same week as Wilder versus Fury 3. You're going to see Lopez versus Kambosos Jr. on Monday at a price point of about $20. And then that Saturday, the trilogy kicks off. Wilder versus Fury 3. I believe that's at a price point of either $75, $80.
Wallace,
Comes out to
Wallace.
roughly 2 pay-per-views in the same week. 2 pay-per-views the same fight week. Vastly different price points. Vastly different platforms, though the same applies. No market, quite like the American market, has become as oversaturated with pay-per-views quite like this one. And I think that this in and of itself lends itself to the dwindling American boxing scene and what audience is still interested in seeing boxing matches.
They're putting everything behind a paywall.
Just saw 2 very recent pay-per-views. One on Showtime, the Jake Paul versus Tyrone Woodley fight. Pacquiao versus Ugas by way of Fox, PBC on Fox. As we go into the fall months, you're looking at Lopez versus Cambosos Jr. on pay-per-view, the same week as Wilder versus Fury 3 on pay-per-view. Then in November, per rumors, that's when the Terrence Crawford versus Sean Portier fight's supposed to be going down. That's supposed to be a pay-per-view. Top it all off, you also have the Canelo Alvarez versus Caleb Plant pay-per-view. Then later on, in December, Gervonta Davis is supposed to be returning to the ring, and he's going to be on pay-per-view.
So how many pay-per-views does that come to?
More than I'd like, I'll tell you that. More pay-per-views than the American boxing community, the American boxing populace, would like to have to pay for. This is ridiculous. They're putting everything behind a paywall. But they finally managed to get Lopez versus Kambosos over the line, so Teofimo Lopez can finally just put that behind him and move on to something bigger and something better, because he has lost considerable momentum since the Lomachenko fight. I mean, we will not have seen this guy the night of the fight for 12 months.
It's ridiculous.
And this isn't a big fight. If not for the significant reduction in the fight's price point, I wouldn't be purchasing it myself. No idea what's going to be on the undercard of this thing.
Initially, they wanted to charge $60.
Of course, 3 times less now, roughly $20. And, you know, that price point makes a lot more sense to me.
Maybe that'll entice more people to buy the fight?
In fact, the fight's price point is roughly the same amount as a movie ticket. Whenever I broach this subject, I can't help but think to myself that look at how much time has been wasted on this very ordinary fight. And you know, for what? Because Teofimo wanted a certain amount of money for a fight that really ain't a big fight? Had Top Rank done this thing, it would have been over and done with by now, and Teofimo could have been capping off the year with a bigger fight that gets him a bigger payday than this one, if he would have just let Top Rank do the fight at the price they wanted to do the fight.
But no!
He's a big fucking star. He needs big fucking purse to fight George Kambosos of all fucking people.
You're willing to lose a whole year for a little more off the top?
That's a rhetorical question. We know that he's willing to lose a whole year because the night of the fight, that's what will have happened. It will have been roughly 12 months since the Lomachenko fight of October last year. Let's just hope that Lopez makes it through this and 2022 proves to be a more productive year than 2021 was.